gone on. And now we can get more information about something I am also not as well read up on, which is the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And we are discussing it with Carolina Schneider. She's a registered dietitian known as Carolina the Green RD. And Carolina, a little background on her, registered dietitian and founder of Hungry for Plants. She specializes in plant-based nutrition and has followed a whole food plant-based diet for her whole adult life. Her experience, combined with her passion and knowledge, equip her to help others better understand the nutritional benefits of food and how to incorporate them into their everyday lives. Originally from Brazil, Carolina, great enough to give us some time this morning and talk about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program and the association it has with the Farm Bill. Carolina, thank you so much for coming on the show this week and giving us some more insight on HealthScope.
Hi, Russ. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Carolina, why is the Farm Bill something we should be concerned about when it comes to our nutrition, and maybe some background on the Farm Bill itself before we dive into the concerns behind it?
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. So the Farm Bill includes provisions for nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP, which you already introduced to the listeners. And this is important because the Farm Bill can then either promote or hinder the development of our local and regional food systems, right? So by supporting these initiatives that increase access to fresh, locally sourced foods, the Farm Bill can contribute to healthier diets and therefore, stronger local economies, but also our health, right? So we can definitely play a role in the access that people have to good, nutritious foods. And the SNAP program, like you already introduced, Russ, helps millions of individuals and families in need and access of nutritious foods. So any really changes to the Farm Bill in terms of the funding, eligibility criteria, or, even the program structure can have direct implications on food security and the access of food as well as the well-being of our more vulnerable populations.
And so the Farm Bill that we're talking about here, it can ultimately promote or kind of disincentivize the development of our local and regional food systems. What does the timeline look like for that bill in terms of how it's making its way through Congress, the Senate, all that stuff?
Yeah, so it's actually coming up now in September. It's every 5 years.
Okay.
So, every 5 years we have a push to advocate for certain changes or updates, right? It's always important that we're staying up to date on regulations, and especially when it comes to things that determine the access of healthy foods to, our different populations. It's really important that we stay, on top of it and work with Congress or advocate for these changes that we'll talk about in a second.
So, as you mentioned, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program helps millions of low-income individuals in the United States and families amongst them, of course, access nutritious food, and changes, obviously, they happen every 5 years. There can be adjustments and stuff. And what are kind of the nutrition gaps within SNAP that maybe aren't quite as addressed or haven't been addressed in the past, and maybe we need to advocate a little bit more for going forward?
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. First, I wanted to say that, you mentioned, families, and actually more than 70% of the SNAP beneficiaries are families with children. So
Wow.
I think that's especially important to our listeners to know that we're feeding our children through SNAP. And like you said, millions of Americans, actually about 40 million Americans that benefit from SNAP. But to answer your question on nutrition gaps, I do love that SNAP does give access to a diverse range of foods, such as fruits and vegetables and grains and proteins, which are all wholesome, nutritious foods that we should all be eating. But I think one thing it's lacking is explicit guidelines concerning the quality and the nutritional value of these foods. So, two simple revisions that we're here to advocate today that I believe could significantly improve SNAP for these families is one, adding vitamin D supplementation, which is extremely important, and I can talk more about it in a second and why that is. And also the second thing is to encourage the SNAP recipients to take advantage of the places they currently have access to shop at and may not know such as independent grocery stores and natural product stores. So these are, maybe like your local natural food stores that a lot of people don't know they have access to, but your SNAP benefits will work there as well. And the reason I say this is because more likely than not, those stores and independent groceries are offering local produce. They're pushing for more wholesome, healthful foods. So I think it's great for people to know they can go to those stores as well.
So the vitamin D supplements, let's tackle that one right now as we continue our conversation here with Carolina Schneider. She is a registered dietitian, founder of Hungry for Plants, which you can learn more about at www.hungryforplants.com, and you can kind of advocate or push for your local representatives to get vitamin D supplementation added in to the upcoming Farm Bill at all4vitamind.com. That's all the number 4, the digit 4, vitamind.com. So speaking of vitamin D, we've covered it a little bit on the show before, but it's a mixture of things, whether it's being inside so much, maybe not necessarily the overuse of sunscreen, but the use of sunscreen, maybe not a little bit too often. People just overall, Carolina, they're not getting enough vitamin D, which most naturally comes from sunlight and sun exposure. Is that kind of the biggest reason why, especially maybe for these lower income families who might be getting less vitamin D than other people, that we need to get these supplements in there?
Yeah, Russ, you nailed it. That's definitely one of the reasons. So vitamin D, just to give your listeners a little bit of background, is absolutely essential for good health.
Right.
Vitamin D deficiency is associated with increased risk for disease, such as cardiovascular or heart issues, high blood pressure, diabetes. But most importantly, as we found during COVID, through a lot of research studies that came out, it's highly associated with respiratory illness, such as COVID, but also preterm birth, depression. So we really identified and know during COVID that the levels that we need to meet, we're not getting that through our diet or through sunlight, like you mentioned, and even, through the SNAP program, people are falling short on getting enough vitamin D. And, you mentioned the sunlight. We're not getting enough sunlight because we're told we shouldn't be in the sun too much. We are wearing sunscreen, which we should. And then also think about the people who live in, depending on the geographic location they're in, they don't have a lot of sun exposure, during winter, or depending on their work life and schedule. And then finally, another reason, Russ, is we do get vitamin D from foods such as egg yolks and dairy products and fish. But think about also the people who either don't have access to those foods for, whatever reason, cost or accessibility, but also the people who are following dietary restrictions. If you're not eating animal products, it's very difficult to get vitamin D from food. So for all those reasons, we're all lacking, and we, having access to vitamin D3 supplementation through your SNAP would greatly improve people's health and at least give them the option to meet their vitamin D needs.
So with that, when we talk about supplementation through SNAP, as we continue our conversation here with Carolina Schneider, registered dietitian, founder of Hungry for Plants, talking about the Farm Bill coming up on the kind of Congress House or the Congress floor in the beginning of fall here in 2023. When we talk about that vitamin D supplementation, is this basically like vitamins like that you would take in pill form? Like I take magnesium supplements and I take an everyday vitamin. Is that kind of the same type of thing where people would get that added to the list of things on their SNAP benefits that they can access through the program?
Absolutely. And vitamin D3 you can find in multiple forms, liquid drops or, like you mentioned, like a capsule or a pill. But essentially, yes, we're advocating to have that as an option for people to use their SNAP benefits towards, so they at least can, purchase vitamin D supplementation, and have access to that. And, one thing we always recommend for everyone listening, SNAP or not, is to get your levels checked regularly, because most often than not, we are deficient in vitamin D. Majority of our population, about 40% is deficient. So getting your blood levels tested is a great way also to prevent that and just to make sure you're keeping up with your nutritional needs.
No doubt, yeah. Yearly, usually people usually go with yearly blood work. That's what I kind of do with my doctor's visits, and it's always a smart thing to just make sure nothing is wonky or out of place with getting that blood work done when people go to see their regular physician visits. And so we just talked about how we can get vitamin D and why it's so beneficial and why it's so imperative for the entire U.S. population, especially when we talk about 40% of people being vitamin D deficient. Outside of the website I mentioned, all4vitamind.com, is there other ways that people can entice Congress to add the vitamin D supplementation to the SNAP benefits once we get to that farm bill getting voted on in the next few months?
Yeah, Russ, actually, I believe that's the best and easiest way. And just to give a little bit more background, if they go to that website, all4vitamind.com, what's great about it, and I actually, did it the other day, so I went through the process. The Organic and Natural Health Association actually already wrote the letter that you need to send to Congress. So essentially, all you're doing, you're going to all4vitamind.com, you click on the tab that says Take Action, and it essentially, you fill in your personal information, your address, so then it pulls, the representatives in your local representatives, and then the letter's already written, so you can modify. It's personalizable, so if you want to change anything, but all the work is done, essentially. So it's very simple. I think that's about the best way to do it. It takes about 2 minutes. But also familiarizing yourself, with your local officials and knowing what's going on and kind of keeping up. Because at the end of the day, Russ, it does impact all of us. And, we all want people to have more access to good nutrition. And I will say, I just wanted to add, Russ, for those who are SNAP recipients, maybe they're wondering, what can I do now to improve my health or make better choices. So while the vitamin D push is going, hopefully we'll go through, what they can do now is know that you can go to those, independent grocery stores and natural product stores. So take advantage of that. Go to those. Usually, people working at those stores are more health conscious. They're very much aware, so they can help you, make better choices. You're supporting local farmers. More likely you are, because again, that's what the push is in those stores, to really support the local economies, and you're getting access to better, higher quality food. So that's one thing you can do today to improve your health, is start shopping at those, and knowing that you have access to those hopefully will motivate you to try those stores. With
the known aspect part of that, is there a different website or a list somewhere that people can look at, maybe like local Cincinnati places that they can go to, or places or list of Ohio spots that are natural food kind of locales, instead of, not to say that Kroger or Aldi or these other places are bad, but they obviously have all of the non-healthy options available as well, so you may be a little bit more enticed to go the non-healthy route as opposed to going the healthy route.
Yeah, Russ, I would say in my experience, at least in my area, I'm located in California, so my apologies if I'm not familiar with the Ohio stores, but in most of the stores, you would be surprised, are accepting a SNAP benefit. So maybe trying your local stores and just asking the question.
Maybe give them a call or something. Call the customer service.
Yeah, that would be great. Visiting. I will say I noticed them in the most part. The stores do accept it, which is really nice. I feel like a lot of people don't know that. You would think that the bigger grocery stores is the only place you can go to. So maybe, touching base with your local store, and, if that's not a possibility, maybe they can reach out and also incorporate that. But for my understanding and my knowledge, most of the local stores are accepting it. So it's a great benefit to all.
Awesome. Carolina Schneider, registered dietitian, giving us a lot of great time today on HealthScope, founder of Hungry for Plants as well. You can find more information at all4vitamind.com, and you can visit Carolina's website, hungryforplants.com as well. Is there any other resources or avenues people should head down if they want to figure out more information on this, Carolina?
No, Russ, you nailed it. allforvitamind.com. It's there. If you want to follow me on Instagram and ask me questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm Carolina De Green RD on Instagram. And, I'm very glad that we were able to have this conversation. I appreciate you bringing this to everyone's awareness.
Trying to get some more vitamin D supplementation into the Farm Bill. It sounds like a great idea to me in a way that we can kind of keep chipping away at what is the most expensive country for healthcare in the entire world right here in the United States. Carolina, thank you so much for coming on HealthScope this week and sharing all this knowledge and these resources.
Thank you so much for having me, Russ.